I'm smiling, she living, she go there, she lives for me. Said she lives for me, elation. For motivation, she goes out and she goes down with me. It'll make you smile like it's up for you. Do ever what you wanna do, coming up with you. Keep on smiling, what we go through. One stop to the rhythm that the vibe to. Keep to you like the birds to the birds. Drop another line like a turtle with the curve. Coming like a freak show, take the stage. Extend the grace and let you say, I want something to get me through this. Say some kind of life. Baby, I want something else. I'm not listening when you say.
Well, and I'm not saying goodbye, I'm actually saying hello, and guess what? I'm living that semi-charmed kind of life, but you know what? I'm no longer third eye blind. And this is Maris at Midnight, and we are on episode 5 of Confessions of an Eclectic Healer. Tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my early experiences coming out of that second great huge awakening. You remember when I went and did the dive at the saltwater deprivation tank, and that third eye just wide open, blasted open. And in that time, I started seeing things with a totally different perspective. A totally different perspective. And also during this time, Carla St. Laurent had made a comment to me in a message, and she said that they'll all be coming out. It was along that lines of that they'll all be coming out and they'll be checking to see who I am and what I'm doing and what I can do. And I thought that that was kind of interesting. Well, some of the things had changed a little bit in the climate of where my office is located. I had a smaller room in the suite where I am, and on the other side of the door, of one door, used to be the suite of the landlady of here in the building, and she moved out of there and moved into a different building, and this guy moves in there, and I don't really know what he does, but he's uber loud on the other side of the door when he's talking on the phone with his clients, and you can hear most of the conversation. So I'm over there like trying to get the Zen music, playing it up really loud, and do my little gong, play some bells, etc., trying to distract from him talking on the phone on the other side of the wall or that door. Well, one night I had an assistant that was working with me for a while, and really kind of cool lady, but she had a son that was about 11 turning 12, and he was a little bit on the naughty side. He was, misbehaving, running the streets late at night, etc., and she was really worried about him. We were talking about, some music things. Now, remember, when I had this dive, I was given some information or made privy to things that are all now pretty well evident about some of the things that were going on in the entertainment industry along the lines of pedophilia, Satanism, Luciferianism, whatever you want to call it. We'll just call it darkness. So there was a lot of darkness going on in entertainment, a lot of darkness going on in Hollywood, and this kid was watching movies, watching TV shows, listening to a lot of music, and he was very confused and misbehaving and having some difficulties getting along with other people. So the assistant and I are talking, and I'm kind of giving her some pointers, and I'm like, start diverting some of that computer or TV time and do some reading, do some family activities, etc. And we just started talking, and I was letting her know some of the things, and I was showing her some of the things that I had envisioned, that I had received in that wonderful download. And so later that evening, we were going to leave. The guy that's in the office on the other side of the wall ends up cornering me, and this is like 8:30 at night, and it's dark outside. Ends up cornering me up against the wall, up in a corner of the building, and pretty much tells me that I need to be mindful about what I'm talking about and who I talk about it to. And I'm like, oh, really? So is that like a threat? So I didn't back down from it at all. And I kind of looked at him and I said, I will choose to speak to who I want to, and I will say what I choose to speak. I'm not going to stop talking about it. we got a problem here, Houston. We have an industry that is manipulating the minds of our youth, manipulating the minds of our, adult population, that we're being manipulated through entertainment, through movies, through symbolisms, whatever. And we have every right to stand up and say, we're not going to tolerate that. So anyway, old boy had cornered me up there, and that evening ends. She goes home, he goes home, I go home. I don't think anything of it. And so about a week later, I have a man that makes an appointment for a Reiki session. And it's a new client, so I'm really kind of excited. I like new clients. It's always neat to meet new people. And I am in session, and I come out of session. The session ends, I come out, and this guy is sitting on the couch. And I look at him, and the first thing that comes up to my forehead, in that little mind frame, I call it the movie screen in my brain, the first thing that comes out is, I think this guy's a reptilian. Dude's a reptilian. He looks average. Average looking guy. Dark brown hair, brown eyes, mustache. Like 5'8", 5'9", something like that. Medium build. Nice guy. But I'm like, he's a reptilian. And I really wasn't, and I'm still kind of hesitant on that concept of a reptilian. And what does that really mean when somebody is a reptilian or a hybrid? We've got 101 different concepts. We can think about them as being half demon, half human. We can think about them as being half alien, and that's from extraterrestrial, half human, or being extraterrestrial, that is such a high vibration, he comes across as a human, or a demon, that's a reptilian, that is so high vibrating that he comes across as a human. Okay, whatever on there. High vibration means not necessarily as a demon that he's a high vibration or a light frequency, but he is that high up in the elevation, or that high up in the hierarchy, that he vibrates like a human. So it can be any one of those things, I don't know. And he tells me, so, I get my little interview in with him, and he tells me that he gets Reiki once every 3 years as a tune-up. So I'm like, wonderful. We go into the treatment room, and he lays down, and I start Reiki, and that energy flow is just beautiful. Just beautiful. And it's very calming, and I got beautiful colors going on in my eyes, or in that movie screen up there in my head, enjoying every minute of it, having a good day. It's great. He's doing wonderful on the table. And I stand up, and I'm doing the solar plexus and the sacral root area. And normally I close my eyes during the session. I like to see all the cool colors on that mind screen, right? I open my eyes and I look down, and he has the nictitating eyelids going on. Nictitating eyelids. Like that third eyelid look, where the upper eyelid, inner eyelid, and then there's also this lower eyelid, and they're all kind of flickering around, and I'm like, holy cow. He is a reptilian. Holy cow. The session ends, and he stands up, and he thanks me. And, I brush off, and I give him a glass of water, and he thanks me again, and he leaves me a nice tip, and he goes out the door, and I've never seen him again. And it's been more than 3 years, but I've never seen him again. So another week passes by, and you remember the guy that's on the other side of my door, and he's really loud, and he's the one that corners me up against the wall. Well, it ends up he knows another one of my clients, and so they have a little conversation out in the hall. Groovy, wonderful. And then a couple of days later, he comes up and he tells me that he's moving. And he's adamant to give me this teddy bear. At this point, I don't see children in my office, so it's kind of like weird that he would give me a teddy bear when I see just adults. But he gives me a teddy bear. I didn't keep the teddy bear, I passed it on. Well, I'll be honest, I passed it on into the dumpster. There was something about that teddy bear. I didn't dig the vibe. I didn't dig the energy. There was something off about the gift. There was something off about the man being in that office on the other side of my wall. And it made me wonder how much of my conversations he was listening to. There's a couple of drawbacks to being an intuitive. One of them is that when people choose to be untruthful or omit truths, notice I'm not saying a lie, but manipulating the truth or omitting a truth, when they know that you're an intuitive and you know, it's like, I know that you know that I know that you know that I know that you know you're lying. It's almost a waste of breath. And it's sometimes, especially when it's by people that you're really close with, it's a slap in the face. Because again, it's the I know that you know that I know that you know that I know you're not telling the truth. And then the other part of it that is a drawback to being an intuitive is the trigger mouth of blurting out info received via an intuitive moment. I tend to make people nervous with those kind of pineal or pineal, whatever way you want to pronounce it, perspectives. Often as intuitives, we can be judged or we can be perceived as being judgmental because we call it as we see it. There is no gray to information received by an intuitive message. It comes across and it's there. It is the manner that we deliver that can facilitate or impede the healing experience. Nevertheless, sometimes sugar-coated language is very difficult to understand, and that message will not be received. And other times we just have to be very blatant and sometimes blunt in order for that message to be received. It's not easy to be an intuitive because sometimes we are placed into this position where we have to give a hard, cold reality truth, sometimes to ourselves and more often to others. And then as an intuitive, another thing that kind of sucks is when we miss the message that's intended for ourselves. I was doing some angel healing sessions. I really dig doing angel healing sessions. And sometimes I'm chastised for being a angelic lover. And sometimes I'm chastised for being a Christian. But I laugh and I kind of, put it off to the side. Sometimes it hurts my feelings, but most of the time I laugh. Because out of any story that I've read, and notice I use the word story, I can't think of anybody that was more magical and connected with the earth than Christ himself. So I'm going to leave that there for right now. I won't go back to that for the rest of this particular podcast. But so I'm doing this angel healing session with this couple, and she's a really nice lady. And she's about my age-ish, and she's got a husband, and he's a really nice guy, but he's kind of going through some health problems, and he's very scared on it because there's a lot of unknown. And so they come in. I see them periodically, and they'd come in for a couple's angel healing session, and it was really interesting because there's at this point that you're asking for white light to come in, and then you ask for spirit guides and their ancestors and guardian angels to come in, and you feel this shift in energy, and then you start connecting in with the angelic realm, and that's a really beautiful experience. And I'm over there in my head, and I'm like, just show us a sign, ring a bell, knock on the window, do something really cool so we know that you're here. I didn't say it aloud, I said it in my head. And so I'm over there, and I'm like just tuning in and connecting, and I get this message of, don't ask for party tricks. So I'm like, holy cow. I write it up in the corner of the paper. And so I continue on with this couple session. And at the end, I go over the session with the client, and I'll tell them what had happened or what I experienced, and ask them about what they experienced. And we go over any messages that they may have. And I start laughing, and I go, well, the message that's up here in the corner is really for me. I had to write it down so I wouldn't forget it. And she laughed, and she was like, well, what was the message? And so I'm kind of like, get really red-faced, and I'm embarrassed for a second, and I'm like, oh, man. I was like, when I was calling in angels and connecting into the angelic realm, I asked the angels, the archangels, to show me a sign. I was like, ring a bell, knock on the window, do something, make a candle flicker, whatever. Show me that you're here. And the message that I received, and I'm telling her, the message I received was, don't ask for party tricks. She, her face kind of turns a little red, and she kind of smiles, and she looks down, and she was like, I asked him the same thing. And I go, well, our response back was, don't ask for party tricks. So my great lesson out of this experience of my third eye opening up, and starting to develop what I'm going to call the pineal perspectives, was that don't ask for party tricks, and I won't get them. They'll show me the real thing when I'm ready and able to accept it. And that has been a part of my journey, and that is what I'm working on in these confessions, is to let you know that you're not alone. There is nothing to fear. Remember, there's fear mentioned in Scripture 365 times. That's for one. Don't fear for every day of the year except for leap year. So leap year, you can have fear one day. But know that I'm walking there with you, body, mind, and spirit. And you are not alone on this journey. So I had a rude awakening, but I'm no longer third eye blind. And I am definitely living a charmed kind of life, and not the kind of Alyssa Milano. There are many things out there that you will be made privy to, that you will see, that you will experience. And some of it you won't believe ever occurred. And some of it will be so miraculous and beautiful that you will be very blessed and happy that you were there at the right place and the right time. Choose to do awesome things. Be grateful and show love and give people a random smile every once in a while. Thank you for joining me. Good night.